Imagine, for just a second, pouring your entire life savings into a small business.
Okay, sounds stressful already.
Right. So you sign a lease on this tiny retail space, you pay a massive deposit,
Yeah.
and then you hand over this hefty fee to the broker who found the place for you. You take out loans to build the shelves, paint the walls, stock up all the inventory.
Just bleeding money at this point.
Exactly. And then you finally open your doors. You're exhausted, you're sweating, you're already buried in debt.
Right.
And your very first customer walks in. They buy a single pen.
A pen.
A pen, you make a profit of exactly 5 cents. And every single penny of that profit immediately goes right back to the bank to pay off those massive loans you just took out to build the shop in the first place.
Man, that sounds like a complete financial nightmare.
It really is a nightmare. But what if I told you that exact terrifying scenario is being used right now on this massive, highly energized private Zoom call?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they use it to convince thousands of people to hand over their own savings to join a direct selling network.
That is wild.
It really is. So, welcome to today's deep dive. We are stepping way behind the curtain of a massive direct selling organization called Insys Viva.
Which is such a fascinating case study.
Totally. We managed to get our hands on a recorded internal training webinar. It features an executive named Rajesh Sangwan and a top-tier mentor in the organization named Prem Kumar.
And, taking a magnifying glass to this specific webinar is so interesting because it totally breaks the mold of what most of us think of when we hear, like, corporate training.
Oh, yeah. No boring slides here.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
There are no sterile PDF manuals,
Yep.
no compliance videos playing in the background while employees just, check their phones into the desk.
Far from it. I mean, this is highly charged. The energy is super intense. And for you listening, whether you've ever been pitched a network marketing opportunity or not, this deep dive is an absolute masterclass in the psychology of sales.
It really is.
We are looking at the structural mechanics of how you build momentum and the specific motivational frameworks they use to inspire this massive distributed independent workforce.
And I think the scale of it is what really stands out to me. We aren't looking at some small team huddle. The hosts of this webinar actually announced right at the beginning that this is Season 16, Week 7 of their ongoing training program.
Season 16, Week 7. I mean, that tells you everything you need to know about the environment we are dropping into.
Yeah, it's an institution.
Exactly. This isn't some hastily thrown together onboarding call. This is a deeply entrenched corporate culture. It has its own language, its own internal logic, and its own really strict rituals.
Very strict.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because they don't open this massive seminar by talking about their products. They don't mention ingredients or wellness benefits at all.
Not a single word about the actual product.
Right. Instead, they start by actively attacking the current behavior of the people on the call.
Which is such an incredibly calculated move. If you picture this bustling digital boardroom, right, with hundreds of little video squares, the leaders understand this fundamental truth about sales.
Which is what?
Before you can teach someone a tactic, you have to lock in their identity. If a distributor doesn't see themselves as a committed business owner, well, the best sales script in the world is just going to fall flat.
And they enforce that identity immediately. Rajesh, the executive who kicks things off, he uses this great line. He says, the mind is like a parachute. It only works when it's open.
It's a classic line, but it works.
It does. And he doesn't just, say that and move on. He uses it to demand immediate physical compliance from the hundreds of attendees.
Yeah, he really lays down the law.
He does. He tells everyone they have to find a quiet, isolated room. They need to have a physical diary and a pen in their hands. And honestly, my favorite part, he demands they completely overhaul their Zoom display names.
The digital hygiene aspect of this is brilliant.
It is. He starts calling out the default settings. He tells them to stop using their phone models as their names.
Right, like no more lurking.
Exactly. No more lurking under the name Oppo or just random strings of digits like 2026. He requires them to type out their actual legal names and then proudly display their specific corporate rank right next to it.
Which totally changes the dynamic.
Completely.
Yeah.
So you can't just be Galaxy S23 anymore. You have to be Amarjeet, Star 1000, or, executive.
Yeah.
I love this because it's like telling someone they can't show up to a corporate boardroom in their pajamas.
Right. You have to put on the tuxedo.
Exactly. You have to put on the tuxedo. By forcing them to display those ranks, he is gamifying the entire experience and establishing a very clear digital hierarchy right there on the screen.
What's fascinating here is the underlying psychology of presence. I mean, let's think about our own remote work habits for a second.
Oh, we've all been guilty of it.
We definitely have. If you've ever sat in a corporate all-hands meeting with your camera off and your microphone muted, you know exactly what that Oppo phone guy was doing.
Yeah, watching TV, basically.
Exactly. You are a passive observer. You're basically watching a TV show while making lunch in the kitchen.
You're completely disengaged.
But the moment your camera is on, your physical notebook is open, and your specific rank is being broadcast to hundreds of your peers, you shed that passive identity.
You can't hide anymore.
You can't.
Ugh.
You are forced to adopt the posture of an active participant. Visual conformity, seeing hundreds of other people with their cameras on, all properly formatted with their ranks, it creates this immense peer pressure.
Wow, yeah. I didn't even think about the peer pressure aspect.
Oh, it's huge. It builds a unified group identity. And in network marketing, collective energy is the fuel that runs the entire engine. Passive energy yields passive sales.
So they've basically manipulated the digital environment to make you feel like a CEO.
Precisely.
But feeling like a CEO is free. The next step is getting you to put your money where your newly formatted Zoom name is. Because once everyone is sitting up straight with their diaries open, the main speaker, Prem Kumar, takes the floor.
And the tone shifts entirely.
It really does. He immediately pivots from digital presence to financial presence. He introduces this concept called the President's Club.
This transition is where the structural leverage of their system becomes very apparent.
Let's look at the mechanics of this because it's pretty intense. To get into this President's Club, a participant has to make a significant upfront investment out of their own pocket.
Right.
They measure things internally with a metric called PV, which stands for point volume.
Yeah, standard direct selling terminology.
Right. So Prem Kumar tells them they need to place a 300 PV order, which translates to buying about 12 of their wellness products. Or they can go all the way up to a 40 product order.
Which is not a small amount of product.
It's a ton. And the carrot he dangles for doing this is all about their administrative status. In their system, distributors normally have to renew their active ID every lunar month, so roughly every 4 weeks.
Okay.
But if you drop the cash to join the President's Club, your ID stays active for a full 48 weeks. You get almost a whole year of continuous income eligibility without worrying about administrative renewals.
So it's framed as a massive logistical convenience.
It is. But let me push back on this for a second, because reading through the source material, my alarm bells were definitely ringing.
I can imagine.
A 40 product upfront order is a lot of inventory for one person to just have sitting around.
It's basically a small warehouse in your living room.
Exactly. So is this President's Club just a really polite, gamified way for the company to offload its inventory risk onto the lowest level distributors? I mean, it locks in revenue for the corporation by making the frontline workers buy all the stock.
It absolutely functions as a revenue lock-in for the parent company, yeah.
Yeah.
There is no denying the financial reality of that mechanism. However, to view it solely as an inventory dump kind of misses the psychological leverage Prem Kumar is employing here.
Okay, how so?
Well, he actually synthesizes the behavioral reasoning right during the pitch. Removing the administrative friction of monthly renewals is a nice perk, sure, but the true primary benefit he is selling is psychological confidence.
Confidence.
Yes. He leans heavily into the concepts of sunk cost and having skin in the game.
Ah, right. Because if you have 30 boxes of wellness supplements stacked in your living room, you can't just casually ignore them.
That is the exact mechanism. Think about how a salesperson sounds when they are pitching a product they haven't actually invested in themselves.
They probably sound a bit unsure.
They might sound hesitant or maybe a bit desperate because they're just trying out a side hustle.
Yeah.
It's easy to take no for an answer when you have nothing to lose.
Right, because who cares? It didn't cost you anything.
Exactly. But when you have personally spent your own capital on 40 physical products, your entire demeanor shifts.
Yeah.
Your body language changes. The tone of your voice carries a completely different weight.
You stop asking for favors and start acting like someone running a serious operation.
Yes.
Yeah.
The source material argues that this personal investment gives you unquestionable authority. When you sit across from a potential recruit, they can subconsciously feel that you are fully committed.
That makes a lot of sense.
Prem Kumar claims this level of conviction actually makes the recruitment process simple and easy because your own sunk cost completely eliminates your hesitation. You aren't dipping your toes in the water. You are swimming.
Here's where it gets really interesting to me.
Yeah.
Prem Kumar knows that asking people to buy 40 products up front is a tough pill to swallow. People are naturally going to hesitate to part with that kind of money. So how does he justify it? He uses this masterful contrast. He creates an absolute monster out of the alternative, and this is where we get that terrifying stationery shop story I mentioned at the very beginning of our deep dive.
Ah, yes.
Yeah.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, he is utilizing a textbook example of contrast bias.
Contrast bias.
You make the thing you are selling look safe and easy by placing it next to something incredibly dangerous and difficult.
And he paints the danger in such vivid, agonizing detail. He doesn't just broadly say, hey, traditional retail is risky. He forces the audience to walk through the exact steps of opening a basic, everyday stationery shop.
It's highly specific.
It is. He
Yeah.
tells them first you have to hunt down a prime location near a school. Then you have to secure the space with a 1.5 to 2 lakh advance deposit.
Which is a huge chunk of change.
Right. And just for context for our listeners, a lakh is 100,000 rupees. So we are talking about a massive financial hurdle right out of the gate.
And that's just to get the keys.
Exactly. Then he brings up the broker commissions. He notes that if your monthly rent is 5,000 rupees, you are handing another 5,000 rupees straight to the real estate agent.
Uh-oh.
You finally roll up the metal shutter on your new shop, and it is completely empty, so you have to spend another 2 lakhs on the interior, the glass counters, the display shelves.
It just keeps adding up.
And then comes the actual inventory.
Yeah.
You spend 4 to 5 lakhs buying boxes of pens, notebooks, and erasers. Then the moment you finally open your doors, the established shopkeepers next door start treating you like an enemy because you are cutting into their territory.
He is building a mountain of friction and anxiety here.
He really piles it on. And the grand finale of this nightmare is the actual sale. After all the loans, the stress, and the angry competitors, a student walks in and buys a pen for 20 rupees.
And here comes the reality check.
Yep.
Your profit on that pen is a measly 5 rupees. And those 5 rupees are instantly swallowed by the heavy EMI loan payments, the monthly bank installments that you owe for building the shop in the first place. Prem Kumar boldly tells the audience that 99% of traditional businesses operate at a complete loss.
By taking the audience through the sensory, granular details of rolling up that shutter and paying those fees, he triggers a really visceral reaction. He actually uses the term chakravyuha to describe traditional markets.
I caught that. A chakravyuha is an ancient Indian military formation, right?
Yeah.
Like an inescapable multi-tiered labyrinth.
Yes. Once you enter a chakravyuha, the design of the maze ensures you basically cannot get out. The enemies close in right behind you.
Wow.
So by comparing a simple retail shop to a chakravyuha of debt, broker fees, and loan EMIs, he totally shifts the listener's perspective. The audience stops looking at the direct selling model with skepticism.
Right, the 40 product thing doesn't seem so bad anymore.
Exactly. They stop seeing the upfront cost as a risk. Instead, direct selling suddenly looks like a democratized sanctuary. It's the ultimate contrast. You can either walk into the labyrinth of the stationery store, or you can take the straight, clean line of direct selling.
Yeah.
He tells them, in our model, you don't rent an office. You don't pay a broker. You don't fight with the guy next door. You just sell one bottle of our flagship product, which they call iPulse, and you put a 500 rupee retail profit straight into your pocket from day one.
Immediate return.
Right. Zero overhead, immediate return. Compared to the stationery shop, buying 40 products to join the President's Club suddenly feels like a brilliant financial hedge.
But he is very careful not to let the pendulum swing too far.
What do you mean?
Well, while he makes the entry into Indus Viva look incredibly appealing compared to traditional business, he doesn't want them thinking the actual work is effortless.
Oh, definitely not. He delivers a surprisingly harsh reality check. He utterly destroys the myth of easy money.
He really goes after it.
He does. He warns his team, in the most aggressive terms, against lying to potential recruits. He says the single biggest mistake a distributor can make is bringing someone in by telling them, just sign this and you won't have to do anything.
Because setting false expectations is the quickest way to collapse a network marketing structure.
Right.
It might secure a signature and a quick commission today, but that recruit will churn out immediately when they realize real work is required, and they will drag your credibility down with them.
He actually calls it a fatal lie.
Wow.
Yeah, he reminds the room that the income ceiling in the system is staggeringly high. He claims you can earn up to 2.5 lakhs a week, which translates to 10 lakhs a month.
And again, contextually, 10 lakhs a month is an astronomically high income bracket in this market.
It's life-changing money, but he follows that up by saying if you treat the business casually, if you just dabble in it, the market will blow you away like a piece of paper in the wind and the rain.
The phrase, piece of paper in the wind, is a great counterimage to the heavy, grounded reality of the President's Club inventory we discussed earlier.
Oh, that's a great point.
He is demanding professional weight. And to explain how someone actually achieves that 10 lakh a month income, he introduces a very clear mechanical analogy about scaling.
Yes. This was absolutely my favorite part of the source material. How does he explain the leap from making a few rupees to making serious wealth?
He uses the mechanics of an automobile.
Okay, break that down.
Prem Kumar explains that earning your first 1,000 rupees by matching 100 PV in their system is like driving a car in first gear. The fundamental action is established.
Right.
To make 1 lakh, you don't need to invent a new vehicle. You simply need to scale that exact same system to match 10,000 PV. The car you are sitting in the Indus Viva structure already has a 5th and 6th gear built right into the engine. It is entirely capable of hitting that 2.5 lakhs a week speed limit.
Oh, I see. So the vehicle isn't the problem. If you aren't making money, you can't blame the engine.
Exactly. The problem is the driver. The salesperson hasn't learned how to shift the clutch. They are stomping on the gas in first gear, spinning their wheels, and complaining that the car is broken.
That is such a vivid analogy.
It is. Moving from first gear to 5th gear in sales means transitioning from individual effort to managing and duplicating the efforts of a massive team.
But this raises an important question, though. How does an amateur driver learn to shift into 5th gear? Because if we go back to the guy who opened the stationery shop or the pan shop, he is completely isolated.
Right.
He has no one to teach him.
And Prem Kumar addresses that isolation directly. He points out that a traditional pan shop owner essentially has to apprentice for 5 years, sweeping floors and quietly watching his boss with no active instruction, just hoping to absorb the basics of the trade.
That sounds miserable.
It is. But the direct selling model, however, offers a built-in architectural advantage.
The upline.
The upline. Yes, you have a sponsor. You have a dedicated mentor whose own financial success is directly tied to your ability to shift into 5th gear.
Oh, so they are financially incentivized to teach you how to drive.
Exactly. And to hammer home the necessity of utilizing these mentors, Prem Kumar deliberately humbles his audience.
How so?
He lists off billionaire tycoons like Ambani and Adani. He points to world champion athletes in cricket, football, and golf. He reminds the Zoom room that people at the absolute pinnacle of human performance, individuals with unparalleled natural talent, they all rely on coaches.
Oh, wow. Yeah, even the best have coaches.
Right. No one scales to the top of any industry completely alone.
He tells them to basically check their ego at the door. If you are making the money you want, it's because you haven't humbled yourself enough to seek out the mentorship required to learn the next skill.
And he sums it up with this incredibly distilled phrase: "He who learns will last, and he who lasts will win."
He who learns will last. I love that. It positions continuous education not just as a corporate suggestion, but as an existential requirement for survival in the business.
Exactly.
So, what does this all mean? Let's trace the massive journey we've been on during this deep dive.
It's been quite the ride.
It has. We started with the sheer psychological force of the parachute rule. Rajesh forcing hundreds of remote workers to drop the Oppo lurker status, turn their cameras on, and wear their corporate ranks like a digital tuxedo.
Establishing the baseline of professional presence before a single product is ever mentioned.
Right. From there, Prem Kumar walked us into the deep financial mechanics of commitment with the President's Club. We debated the reality of it, but the psychological result is undeniable. Buying that much inventory gives you the skin in the game to replace desperation with absolute conviction during a sales pitch.
It totally alters the body language and tone of the seller, making the recruitment process far more authentic.
Then we saw him utilize contrast bias. He painted that brutal, vivid picture of the traditional stationery shop, the inescapable chakravyuha of advanced deposits, broker fees, and loan EMIs.
Which perfectly framed direct selling as a safe, democratized sanctuary.
Exactly. And finally, he delivered the reality check. He killed the easy money myth, bringing in the car analogy to prove that the system works, but you have to drop your ego and find a coach to help you shift into the 5th gear of scaling.
It really is a comprehensive instruction manual for how to hack a person's motivation and build a resilient sales force.
And as the webinar comes to a close, they don't just leave people with theory, they inject a massive surge of urgency. Rajesh comes back on the screen and reminds everyone that Friday is the absolute hard deadline to qualify for a company-sponsored trip to Malaysia.
Oh, so a real ticking clock.
Yeah. He turns the pressure dial all the way up. And to prove that shifting into fifth gear is actually possible, Rajesh reveals his own personal numbers. He announces to the room that he has personally earned over 35 lakh rupees in this system.
Providing immediate, concrete proof of the concepts they just spent the entire hour discussing.
It makes the abstract numbers suddenly very real. He mentions that his earnings put him just 2 steps away from the absolute top of their internal corporate ladder, a framework they call the 9 steps to Crorepati.
And just for context, a Crorepati is someone who has amassed 10 million rupees. It is the ultimate tier of wealth and success in that cultural context.
So for you, listening right now, taking all of this in, I want to leave you with a final thought to really mull over.
Yeah.
Think about your own career. Think about the industry you are currently trying to master. Do you have a clear, transparent ladder like those 9 steps where you know exactly what metrics are required to hit the top?
It's a great question.
Or are you operating in a traditional corporate system where the rules of advancement are completely hidden from you based on office politics and vague performance reviews?
That ambiguity is the reality for most people in traditional employment structures, and it can be incredibly demotivating.
It really can. Maybe the ultimate takeaway from this direct selling deep dive isn't about selling wellness products or formatting a Zoom name at all.
Right.
Maybe the real lesson is about the power of knowing exactly what your own fifth gear looks like. What is the specific metric you need to scale? And more importantly, are you actively finding the coach who can help you shift into that gear? Or are you just hoping you figure it out on your own while sweeping the floors of the metaphorical pan shop?
Because without that clarity and without that mentorship, you run the very real risk of spinning your wheels in first gear forever.
And no one wants to be stuck in first gear. Thank you so much for joining us on another fascinating deep dive into the hidden systems and psychological mechanics that shape our world. We've pulled back the curtain, looked past the sterile training manuals, and seen exactly how a massive network builds momentum from the ground up. Until next time, keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep looking for that fifth gear.